She left me stranded in a country where I didn't speak the language, had no money, no passport, and no one to turn to. My best friend, someone I trusted more than anyone, just vanished overnight without a word. That alone would have been enough to break me. But what came later? That was the real betrayal. 2 months after she disappeared, she messaged me like nothing had happened. "You're the only one who can help me," she wrote, as if everything she did could be erased with a single text. My name is Lena Hart, and this is the story of how my best friend, Raya Maddox, walked me straight into one of the most terrifying moments of my life, and then came crawling back when her own world started to fall apart. She thought she could use me again. She thought I'd still be the girl who always forgave her, but she underestimated what surviving her betrayal taught me. She didn't just burn a bridge. She lit the match, walked away, and expected me to rebuild it when it suited her. Instead, I made sure she'd never cross it again. Before everything changed, I would have told you that Raya Maddox was more than just my best friend. She was my chosen family. We met during our freshman year of college. I was shy and still figuring out who I was, and she was everything I wasn't. Confident, outspoken, always in motion. She made friends easily, laughed loudly, and had this magnetic pull that made people want to be around her. I was one of those people. From the beginning, we clicked. She made me feel like I belonged, like I was worth listening to. Over time, she became the sister I never had. We spent holidays together, traveled on long weekends, and even lived in the same apartment after college. She knew everything about me, my childhood, my insecurities, my family dynamics, and every embarrassing story I never wanted repeated. And I knew hers, or so I thought. Fast forward to a year before the betrayal. I had just landed a remote job in UX design that gave me the freedom to work from anywhere. Raya was freelancing in photography and social media content creation. We'd talked for years about taking a real trip together, something longer than a weekend, something that felt like an adventure. So when I suggested Portugal and Spain for a 2-week trip, she lit up. "Let's do it," she said, already pulling up flight options. The planning process felt exciting at first. I handled most of the logistics, flights, bookings, budget tracking, because I'd always been the planner in our friendship. Raya handled the aesthetics, outfits, Instagram shots, choosing cafes and markets to visit. It felt like a good balance. I used some savings to cover the upfront costs, knowing she'd pay me back as she always had. I didn't even question it. That's the kind of trust we had, or the kind I thought we had. Leading up to the trip, my younger brother, Noah, voiced some concern. "Just make sure you're not carrying her again, Lena," he said one night while we were on the phone. "You do this thing where you take care of everyone else first. Don't forget to watch your back." I brushed him off. "It's Raya," I said. "We've been through everything together." I believed that. I believed it too much. The first few days of the trip were incredible. Lisbon was beautiful. The streets were alive with music, color, and energy. We drank espresso in tiny cafes, ate pastel de nata by the river, and laughed the way we used to in college. I posted photos of us smiling under tiled archways and clinking glasses on rooftop bars. To anyone watching, it looked perfect. For a while, it felt that way. But by the time we arrived in Barcelona, things started to shift. Raya became distant. She was on her phone constantly, stepping away to take calls she wouldn't explain. At dinners, she seemed distracted, impatient, and less present. I asked her if everything was okay. She brushed it off. "Just work stuff. Clients being annoying," she said. I didn't press it, even though my gut told me something was off. One night, we argued. It started over something small, a comment about splitting the bill at dinner, but it escalated fast. She accused me of being uptight, too controlling, and not knowing how to relax. I told her she was being selfish, that I'd been holding everything together so we could enjoy this trip. She stormed out of the Airbnb. I stayed back, thinking we both needed a break, assuming she'd be back later that night. She wasn't. The next morning, I woke up to silence. Her bed was empty, the blankets barely touched. Her suitcase was gone. My wallet was missing from the table where I'd left it the night before. So was my passport. My heart dropped. I checked my phone. No messages, no missed calls. I tried hers. Straight to voicemail. I messaged her. Once, then 5 times. Nothing. I stood in that tiny Barcelona apartment completely alone, panicked and disoriented. The girl who knew every detail of my life had disappeared without a trace. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she'd gone to cool off, maybe she'd been called away for an emergency. But with my documents missing and no contact, reality set in fast. She didn't just leave, she abandoned me. She left me in a foreign country with no identification, no money, and no way to leave. In those first hours, I felt every emotion at once: shock, anger, fear, and heartbreak. I walked to the nearby police station in broken English and tried to explain my situation. They gave me a number to call the embassy. I was told it would take at least 5 days to get a replacement passport. I found a local hostel and used the last of the cash I had in my suitcase to check in. I called my brother Noah and cried on the phone, trying to make sense of what had happened. He transferred me money immediately and said, "She doesn't get to break you, Lena. You'll get home, and we'll deal with her later." That night, in a room full of strangers, I lay awake realizing something I should have seen earlier. The person I had trusted with everything had used that trust to hurt me in the worst possible way. And somehow, I knew that this story wasn't finished. Raya would come back eventually, but I wouldn't be the same when she did. The days I spent stranded in Barcelona were some of the most disorienting and eye-opening of my life. The embassy told me I'd need to wait 5 business days for emergency travel documents. I had to stretch every euro I had left from what Noah wired me. I found a shared room in a small hostel outside the city center and started living on baguettes, yogurt, and fruit from a nearby market. I felt humiliated. I wasn't just stuck. I was stuck because someone I loved had chosen to leave me there. Raya didn't just walk away from our friendship. She walked away knowing exactly how much damage it would cause. I cycled through every emotion. One minute I was angry, the next I felt gut-punched with sadness. I checked her Instagram compulsively. She hadn't posted since Lisbon. I DM'd her once more. If this is some kind of joke or plan, it went too far. I need to know you're okay. It was never read. Her phone went straight to voicemail. Our mutual friends back home hadn't heard from her either, though most of them assumed we were still traveling together. The only reason I got through that week was because of Noah and a local woman named Lucia, who worked part-time at the hostel. She noticed I was quiet, clearly distressed, and offered to help me navigate things. She translated for me at the embassy and showed me where to buy a prepaid SIM card to communicate better. One evening, she brought over homemade soup and said, "Barcelona is beautiful, but it's also lonely when you don't have someone watching your back." I nodded, unable to explain the ache in my chest. When I finally boarded my flight back to the US, I felt numb. I had built an identity around being the friend who showed up. I was dependable, loyal. If Raya had called me from a jail cell, I would have come running. I used to believe that if you loved someone enough, you forgave them. That belief shattered somewhere over the Atlantic on the flight home. Back in New York, I returned to my apartment and sat on my bed for hours. I didn't cry. I was past tears. I felt this strange, hollow clarity. I kept replaying the trip in my mind, looking for clues, warning signs I had brushed off, moments where I had ignored my instincts because I didn't want to believe Raya was capable of this. She'd always been flaky, yes. But cruel? I didn't think she had it in her. Weeks passed. I told a few close friends what had happened, but I couldn't bring myself to talk about it in depth. It felt embarrassing. I had trusted her so completely that I'd let her handle my passport for a night out. I had booked the Airbnb in my name, linked to my card. I was so eager to believe in the sisterhood I thought we shared that I missed the slow unraveling. And then, out of nowhere, after nearly 2 months of silence, I got a text from her. It was 7:18 a.m. on a Wednesday. I was just pouring coffee, getting ready to jump on a client call, when I saw her name light up my screen. "Lena, I know you hate me. I deserve it. But I'm in serious trouble, and you're the only one who can help me." For a moment, I just stared at the message. My first reaction was shock, but it quickly shifted to disbelief. She hadn't said sorry. She hadn't asked how I was. She just jumped right to her problem. That was Raya. Everything in her world was urgent when it affected her, and invisible when it hurt someone else. She followed it up minutes later with another text. "Please, I messed up. You don't understand everything that was going on back then." And there it was. The start of her attempt to twist the story. No real accountability, just another version of her truth where she could be the victim. I sat there reading the messages, my coffee going cold, thinking, this girl really believes she can walk back into my life like she didn't leave me for dead on the other side of the world. I didn't reply right away. I needed time to think. But I knew one thing. I was no longer the person she abandoned in that Barcelona apartment. Something inside me had hardened. Her return wasn't going to be about forgiveness. It was going to be about choice. And this time, I had the power. Raya's messages stayed on my phone, unanswered for 2 full days. I read them over and over, trying to figure out what part of her thought this was acceptable. She left me stranded thousands of miles from home without a second thought, and now I was supposed to step in and rescue her because she had run out of options? The audacity would have been laughable if it didn't bring back every gut-wrenching emotion I'd spent weeks trying to bury. But the more I sat with it, the clearer things became. I realized this wasn't about whether she deserved help. It was about whether I was willing to reopen the door she slammed shut without a warning. I wasn't. Still, I wasn't going to ignore her either. Not because I felt guilt or lingering loyalty, but because I wanted to face her on my own terms, not in her chaotic, manipulative way. If she was finally showing up in front of me, I wanted her to see exactly what she threw away. I wanted her to know she no longer had power over me, so I messaged her back. "We can meet. 1 hour. Café Elia on Kudes. Don't be late." I picked a public place, not because I thought she'd be violent or anything, but because I needed the separation. I needed the noise of coffee machines and other people's conversations as a buffer between us, something grounding. Café Elia had always been my spot, not ours, and that felt right. I didn't want to meet her in a place that held shared memories. I wanted control of the setting as much as the outcome. When she walked in, it was like watching a stranger with my best friend's face. She looked tired, less polished than usual, a thin layer of desperation clinging to her. Her eyes scanned the cafe until they landed on me. I didn't stand to greet her. I didn't smile. "Lena?" she said quietly, sliding into the seat across from me. I didn't waste time. "I'm only here to listen. That's it. This isn't a reunion." She nodded, biting her lip like she was trying to hold something back. "I know you hate me. I know what I did was wrong, but I didn't know how else to reach you." "You could have started with an apology," I said, keeping my voice even. "You disappeared with my passport and left me stranded in another country. You never called, never explained. You vanished. So go ahead. What's your version now?" She looked down at her chipped nails, then back at me. Things were spiraling. I had debt. A guy I was seeing was in trouble. I panicked. I thought if I just left, I could deal with everything without dragging you into it. "I didn't mean for you to get hurt like that." I blinked. "You didn't mean for me to get hurt. You took my passport, you took my money. What did you think would happen?" She didn't have an answer for that. Instead, she launched into her current problem. Legal trouble involving fraudulent travel documents, threats from people she owed money to, and burned bridges with almost everyone she knew. She needed me to give a character reference to help her clear something up with an attorney. That was her big ask. "Lena, you're the only one who'd still believe in me," she said, voice low, almost pleading. I shook my head. "Number, I'm the only one you think might still feel guilty enough to help. That's not the same thing." She started to interrupt, but I held up a hand. "This isn't about revenge, Raya. I'm not going to scream or humiliate you, but you need to know I'm not that girl anymore. The one who would have bent over backward to fix your mistakes. That girl learned the hard way, and I hope you do too." There was silence between us. No tears, no drama. Just a long pause as reality sank in for both of us. She thought this was her redemption arc. She thought she could come back and hit reset on a story she blew up herself. "I'm not giving you a reference," I said, standing to leave. "You need to figure this out on your own, just like I had to." As I walked out, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not triumph, not bitterness, just peace. I didn't need to punish Raya. She had created her own consequences. All I did was finally stop protecting her from them. The moment I walked out of that cafe, something shifted in me. It wasn't dramatic or loud. There was no cheering in my head, no sense of triumph, just a deep, steady calm. For months, I'd carried the weight of what Raya did to me, replaying every detail and every question over and over. But now, after hearing her excuses, her carefully chosen half-truths, and her plea for help, I understood something that had taken me too long to realize. Her betrayal had never been about me. It was who she was. And finally, I was done giving it space in my life. As I stepped into the sunlight, I let that moment mark the end of something. Not just our friendship, but the guilt, the self-blame, the quiet voice that used to whisper, maybe I should have seen it coming. I had done everything a loyal friend could do. I showed up. I trusted. I forgave, again and again, until the cost of that forgiveness landed me alone in another country with no way home. Raya didn't make a mistake. She made a series of decisions, and those choices came with a price she was finally beginning to feel. Later that evening, I sat on my balcony, phone off, watching the city move below me. I thought about how close I'd come to saying yes, how easy it would have been to give her that reference just to make her go away. But what kind of peace would that have brought me? None. It would have been like letting her get away with it, like handing her another blank check with my name on it. Number this time. She had to face what she'd created without hiding behind me. In the days that followed, I didn't hear from her. No follow-up texts, no angry retaliation. Nothing. I imagined she was either scrambling to fix her mess another way or coming to terms with the fact that her last safety net was gone. I wasn't angry anymore. I didn't need her to suffer. I just needed her out of my life. That clarity had taken a long time to reach, but once it arrived, it felt solid. My brother Noah called a few days later to check in. "How'd it go?" he asked, even though I think he already knew. I told her no, I said simply. There was a pause, and then I heard the smile in his voice. About damn time. We didn't dwell on it. We didn't need to. Noah had always seen the way Raya pulled me in and left me drained, but he also knew I had to reach this point on my own. His respect for that meant more to me than any "I told you so." What surprised me most in the aftermath was how little I missed her. For years, Raya had been my go-to, my emergency contact, my +1, my late-night vent partner. But in her absence, I found more room for people who actually showed up without strings attached. I started spending more time with coworkers, reconnecting with old friends I'd unintentionally distanced myself from because of Raya's constant chaos. The more I rebuilt, the more I realized how many one-sided friendships I had tolerated simply because I didn't want to be alone. But I wasn't alone. I had people like Noah and even Lucia, the woman who barely knew me in Barcelona but helped anyway. I had myself, too, and that had to count for something. More than anything, I had proof that I could survive something awful and come out the other side not just intact, but stronger. There was no dramatic fallout, no social media blow-up, no apology letter. Just silence, which I welcomed. Raya faded into the background, and I let her stay there. I didn't need her to acknowledge the damage to validate my healing. I had seen enough. I had felt enough. What Raya didn't understand was that when she left me stranded, she thought she broke me. But all she really did was force me to finally wake up to the truth of who she was, and who I was without her. And that woman, the one who came home with nothing but a suitcase full of hard lessons, ended up rebuilding a life filled with people who deserved to be there. She wanted forgiveness without accountability. She wanted comfort without consequences. But this time, the story didn't go her way. I didn't get even. I got free. The days and weeks after that final meeting with Raya were surprisingly quiet. There were no more messages, no sudden calls, no fake apologies disguised as pleas for help. Just silence. For the first time in a long time, my life wasn't being pulled into her orbit. It felt strange at first, like there was a space where something used to be. But it wasn't an absence I missed. It was space I finally had back for myself. I started filling it with better things. I signed up for a ceramics class I'd been eyeing for months but never committed to because Raya would have rolled her eyes at it. I started working out again, slowly and without pressure. I took more calls from my brother Noah, who by now had become my sounding board and quiet cheerleader through every phase of this mess. One night, while we were on the phone, he said, "You sound lighter. I don't know how else to say it." And he was right. I wasn't carrying her anymore. What surprised me was how much I had to unlearn about myself after Raya was out of the picture. I had always prided myself on being the dependable one, the helper, the fixer. And yes, part of that was genuine kindness, but another part came from fear. Fear that if I didn't show up, I'd be left behind, that if I stopped being useful, I wouldn't be worth keeping around. Raya fed that fear expertly. Whether she meant to or not, she thrived in our imbalance. And I kept it going because it felt safe, until it wasn't. Now, I choose different. I choose friendships that feel steady, not performative. People who don't just reach out in crisis, but show up on ordinary Tuesdays with good news or just to check in. I'm more careful, yes, but I'm also more open. Because what I lost with Raya wasn't just a friend. It was the illusion that I needed someone like her to feel full. Once that illusion was gone, I found there was room for more honest, grounded relationships in my life. I've also let myself forgive. Not her, but me. I've let go of the shame I felt for not seeing it sooner, for ignoring my gut, for giving her too many chances. Healing didn't come from pretending it never happened. It came from looking straight at what did, owning my part in it, and still choosing to move forward without bitterness. One of the final steps in that healing was reaching out to Lucia, the woman who helped me back in Barcelona. I wrote her a long message, thanked her again, and told her what that small act of kindness meant to me. She replied with warmth and something I'll never forget. Sometimes the people who appear for a moment leave a bigger mark than those we keep around for years. She was right. This whole experience reminded me that closure doesn't always come in dramatic endings. Sometimes it's just the quiet realization that you're okay now, that you didn't just survive someone's worst, they showed you what you're no longer willing to accept. Raya never got her redemption arc. She never said the right words or changed in the way she hoped I'd believe, but I did get mine. It wasn't about getting even. It was about choosing peace over chaos, strength over silence, and clarity over guilt. I don't hate her. I don't wish her harm. I just know now that I deserved better, and that I finally gave that to myself. That's how this story ends. Not with revenge, not with reconciliation, but with a woman who learned to stop chasing people who ran and instead walk straight into her own life, head high, heart intact, and finally free.